Further proceedings on the amendment by the gentleman from South Carolina will be postponed. It is now in order to consider the amendment number 34 printed in the House Report 118-142. For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Speaker, to propose Amendment 1464.
The gentleman has an amendment at the desk. The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 34, printed in House Report number 118-142, offered by Mr. Norman of South Carolina.
Pursuant to House Resolution 583, the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Norman, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What my amendment does is codify the Trump administration's guidance to prohibit the display of unapproved flags. My amendment prohibits any member of the armed forces or civilian employees of the Department of Defense from displaying a flag other than an approved flag in a workplace, a public area, a training facility, or other areas owned or leased by the Department of Defense. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to this amendment.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this amendment. Instead of debating the very many pressing national security issues that our country faces, my Republican colleagues are unfortunately using this amendment and many others to continue their needless crusade against the LGBTQ+ community. It goes without saying that regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, the service members and civilian employees who work at the Department of Defense provide a great sacrifice and great service to our great nation. With this amendment, my Republican colleagues are once again attempting to erase and to censor the LGBTQ+ community in our armed forces and in those workplaces. For 17 years, Don't Ask, Don't Tell prohibited service members from being openly themselves without the threat of being discharged. I served during this time. Since its repeal, our country has made significant strides to acceptance in our armed forces and in the DoD. With this amendment, anti-equality lawmakers are attempting to take us backwards by prohibiting service members and DoD employees from displaying the pride flag, a symbol of strength and acceptance of the LGBT community, individuals, and the many ongoing challenges that continue to be faced by that community. Regardless of whether you are a service member serving overseas, or a civilian employee working at the Pentagon, or our service members and defense employees, all of our service members and defense employees should have the opportunity to celebrate their identity and their truth. And this amendment would take that away. With the enactment of the Respect for Marriage Act, we saw possibilities for progress when both Democrats and Republicans come together in support of the LGBTQ community. Yet instead of embracing this bipartisanship and progress, with this amendment, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are espousing an anti-equality and anti-trans agenda. At a time when the LGBTQ+ community is facing a deluge of attacks in states across our nation, now more than ever, we must come together in support of that community, their heroes, and those that honorably serve our country. So once again, I stand here as a veteran, a mother of a gay daughter, an ally to the LGBTQ service members and DoD employees, and in strong opposition to this amendment. And with that, I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves. Gentleman from South Carolina.
Mr. Speaker, let me reiterate, flags mean something. Flags we wear on our sleeves. We honor it prominently on parade fields. We carry it in combat. We drape it over the coffins of those who have given their lives for this nation. Approved flags include the American flag, the flag of a state or the District of Columbia, a general officer's flag, a presidentially appointed, Senate-confirmed civilian flag, a senior executive service and military department specific flag, a POW, MIA flag, the flags of other countries that is an ally or a partner of the United States or for official protocol purposes, the flag of an organization to which the United States is a member, a ceremonial, command, unit, or branch flag, or Gideon. In the words of former Secretary of Army Mark Esper, flags are powerful symbols, particularly in the military community, for whom flags embody common mission, common histories, and the special, timeless bond of warriors. I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentlelady from Pennsylvania.
I yield 2 minutes to Representative Presley.
Gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I rise in opposition to Amendment 35. I rise today on behalf of the service members and their families who make innumerable sacrifices for our country and for our freedoms, yet today there are efforts underfoot to deny them their own. Healthcare is a human right, yet today there are deep disparities that create barriers to access to care, including like today's amendments, which will only deepen those gaps. This is especially true when it comes to abortion care and reproductive health care. There's been a daily assault on access to regular and routine care. In addition to full spectrum reproductive care being an essential human right, it is also a readiness imperative for our military. So if you care about the fitness of our military, then part of that readiness imperative includes access to the full spectrum of reproductive care. This is a human right. You should not have to forfeit your right to medical care when you enlist to serve your nation. But due to the massive restrictions to abortion care enacted at the state level, for many of our military families on base, they cannot receive the care they need, and they must navigate onerous travel to get basic health care. This includes in instances of being raped by a fellow soldier or a superior. And now my colleagues across the aisle are trying to trap pregnant service members and deny them the care that they seek. This is dystopian, but unfortunately, it is all too real. Since draconian and cruel abortion bans have been enacted across our country, pregnant people have been denied care, and the outcomes have been debilitating and devastating. People have been denied miscarriage treatment, care for ectopic pregnancies. Mothers have lost their ability to have a child because of convoluted laws that delayed or denied the urgent abortion care they sought, resulting in lasting health issues and infertility. It is unconscionable that this military bill will become yet another blunt instrument to deny women and families across the nation their bodily autonomy. This is not the type of exceptionalism that we should be leading in this country. I yield.
Gentlelady yields.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know how much time I have.
Gentlelady has 30 seconds remaining.
30?
30 seconds.
I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves. Gentleman from
How much
South
time do I
Carolina.
have, Mr. Speaker?
3 minutes remaining.
I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. The gentlelady from Pennsylvania.
I'm prepared to close.
Gentlelady from Pennsylvania has the right to close, yes.
I would ask that people consider when they're making decisions like that, that this very body...
Last, so you can reserve. And
okay, excuse me. No problem.
You have 30 seconds.
I'm
The
prepared
gentleman from South Carolina.
I'm prepared to close, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman's recognized.
I just summed this up. Flags have meaning. Flags have purpose. Flags are a symbol of a great nation, as America is. Flags mean something. It's not something to be flippant about. It's not something to take lightly. To my friends on the other aisle, I know this amendment has nothing to do with medical service. It has nothing to do with a lot of the things that have been brought up. This is about having a Department of Defense approve flags before they go up, pure and simple, nothing else. And I would just say that, you know, as we debate this, I'm still amazed that we're spending the time here. I think the diversion that the left wants to provide now is to try to move the ball and get the public, get America off the real problems that we're facing, which are a weakness that we have now under this administration, which is a denial of where we are as a country. And it's time to take our country back. And it boils down to one issue. We're going to preserve our freedom, and we're going to fight for it. And a flag represents that. I yield the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields the balance of his time. The gentlelady from Pennsylvania.
We agree. We should not be spending our time and wasting our time on this issue. We agree. Flags have purpose and flags have meaning. We agree that we should be flying properly approved defense flags. But what we don't agree on is that we should be taking our nation back. This is all of our nation, not just for some. I yield.
Gentlelady yields back. All time has expired for debate. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from South Carolina. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chair, I'd ask for a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from South Carolina will be postponed. It is now in order to consider the amendment number 35, printed in House Report 118-142. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Colorado seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 35, printed in House Report number 118-